Hello, thank you for attending this event, and thank you to my colleague Carly Jackson for arranging this. And thank you, volunteers Felipe Hernandez and Nicholas Fawcett, for brainstorming with me. Elon Musk's company, SpaceX, announced that it will make its own laws on Mars, and this has caused quite a stir. Why would the guy who co-founded PayPal with Peter Thiel start a company to make its own laws in space? Well, Peter Diamandis tells us why in his Big Think interview. Peter is founder of the X Prize Foundation and co-founder of a half dozen space companies. I'm going to quote directly from his Big Think interview. Quote, "In space, what's going to happen is the chance to truly explore different societal structures. If you want to practice a pure capitalist state or anarchy or socialism, whatever it is, you can gather the people around you who want to form that type of government and go and create your own society in space. And those who don't like it can duplicate the knowledge of that colony and split and do it again. There will be a Darwinian evolution of different forms of society." Unquote. Elon and Peter, there's a much less expensive way to get started because there's a much more exciting planet where you can make your own laws. This planet is much closer and it's utterly distinct in our solar system for being blue. Here it is rising over a gray moon. Environmentalists, it's not green, it's blue. The oceans are more than twice the size of all the land on this planet. If you were to peel this planet like an orange and lay out its skin, it would look something like this map. Mars is not claimed by any country, and nearly half of this planet is not claimed by any country. No extraterrestrial looking at our planet would name it Planet Earth. Lots of planets have soil and rocks, but Planet Ocean comes with its own three-dimensional universe where we can practice for space. It contains 99% of the living space on the planet, intelligent aliens we can't understand, and rare earth minerals we need to power our civilization that we're currently preparing to go to asteroids to acquire. Engineer Graham Hawkes invented winged submersibles, which fly to the depths of the oceans. He told Bloomberg Business, quote, "Everything we need in our future, food, space, minerals, is in the oceans." Then in Wired, quote, "They're awash with unknown life, unclaimed territory, and immense natural resources." The fact that Planet Ocean is liquid, spherical, and spinning gives it many unique properties for seasteading and space launches. In fact, the lead seasteading engineer is an aerospace engineer. Are you starting to get it? You're looking at a training ground for space and a frontier for startup governance, and it's already begun. Circling the globe at the equator is a band of hurricane-free oceans 1,000 miles wide. The Goldilocks zone for seasteads and space launches is larger than any country, and much of it actually is turquoise. Waves are driven by wind, and winds are so low near the equator in the intertropical convergence zone, those clouds are as still as the waves beneath them. Most of the paradise that you're looking at is in international waters, and the thinnest land bridge in the Western Hemisphere is Panama. Now, look around the room you're sitting in right now. Much of the wealth you're looking at flowed through the Panama Canal, the central hub of shipping in the Western Hemisphere, and that's where the company Ocean Builders is building the first affordable single-family seastead right now as the first step in a plan to go to space. Ocean Builders are cooperating with the Panama government to secure a modest sea zone, a 30-minute ferry ride from Panama City. The largest 3D printer in Latin America will produce single-family affordable sea pods in 2021. It's not new tech. Floating spar structures have been in use for many decades Think of this as the UNIVAC computer, and this is the iPod. In fact, they named it the C-Pod. The designs are intended to evoke the Jetsons. C-Pods will cost less than the average American home. So that means C-Pods require no investors. Ocean builders are pre-selling these straight to customers. Every C-Pod you build increases the amount of life on the ocean. Ocean builders will grow coral gardens on the spar and the underwater room, and the aerospace engineer has developed a technique to triple the speed of this natural process. Next time somebody asks you if your home is sustainable, you say, "Sustainable? Man, that is so 2020. Get with the future, man." Seasteads are environmentally regenerative. This is the next step beyond sustainability. Ecotourists will rent your CB&B, which will be entirely solar powered. This is the covered wagon of the Blue Frontier, and it's a foothold to launch into the stars, as I will explain. This is the rib cage for the roof. That man is Rutger Koch, the aerospace engineer building the first seasteads at his own expense. History strides forward on the greatness of men like this. I want to turn that pose into our next Statue of Liberty. Rutger Koch is delivering his cruise ship to Panama right now, where he and Chad Elwartowski, the first seasteader, bought this with their own money. Starting today, when you think of 2020, I want you to think of the number of seasteaders the MS Satoshi can accommodate, exactly 2,020 pioneers, to help them build C-Pods. The largest 3D printer in Latin America is currently operating in Linton Bay Marina, co-owned by the man who ran Panama's Colón Free Trade Zone, the largest free trade zone in the Western Hemisphere. Ocean builders plan to load the 3D printer onto a barge and roll C-Pods off the assembly line to float in their sea zone. If you want to join an incubator for a cryptocurrency economy, move to the crypto ship, which will be your school training you for freedom at sea. If they sell enough cabins in the next couple months, this will be your commute to work in the manufacturing town, birthing the aquatic revolution that will allow Rutger Koch to lead us to space. This is not a government project. Ocean builders are testing people's resolve to choose freedom by jump-starting an organic, decentralized project. That means they need lots of entrepreneurs showing up to make a profit. Rutger Koch planned an underwater restaurant for international waters just before the Thai Navy politely said no thank you, but the knowledge gained by the prototype is applicable to any ocean. There's no end to this spar design in principle. In oceans where waves are higher, the spar could be made deeper and heavier. So the spar design is scalable from the C-Pod to the city, and waves are not a challenge, they're an asset. Friends of mine are working on floating wave breakers that absorb energy from the waves to be used for power in such a way that the power generated pays for each additional module. If they perfect this technology, you can scale up wave breakers to any size. The heavier and wider you make the seastead, the more stable it is in waves and the more life naturally grows on it, both above and below the water, increasing life, storing carbon, lowering the acidity of the local water, and providing a natural port for boats. You're looking at the vision of a Singaporean seasteader who is planning floating reefs, which naturally grow mangroves, and these will cost much less than land in Singapore, and he plans on towing these out to the equator. If the wave breakers can pay for themselves, and floating land is cheaper than coastal land, what would stop this flower from growing like a crystal? We're almost ready to launch into space with Rutger Koch. Koen Uthhaus, the world's leading water architect who designed the Seapod, also designed the Sea Scraper. Imagine the coral you could grow on this. He also designed the Sea Tree. Just like your land garden has birdhouses, ocean builders propose fish houses. Different kinds of animals at different depths of the sea. A complete paradigm shift is possible if you float. If we secure a custom-made Seastead flag, 2/3 of the world's surface becomes possible for seasteads, and the Seastead Flagging Registry becomes rich. The nonprofit Seasteading Institute, which I run, is working to certify, insure, and flag seasteads for family use. I want parents to feel safe letting their children sleep in that room. I want the aquatic generation to grow up watching life restore itself on their homes. I want families to skip Netflix and watch coral gardens knowing they are safe and insured. If we grow it, they will come. According to the World Wildlife Fund, coral covers 1/4 of the oceans and is home to 1/4 of all marine life on the planet. Quote, in fact, the variety of life supported by coral reefs rivals that of the tropical forests of the Amazon or New Guinea. Unquote. Every seastead increases the amount of life on the ocean, so you declare the seastead an environmental treasure to be protected, just like decommissioned oil platforms off the coast of California. That's what makes seasteads bulletproof. Underwater restaurants featuring coral gardens already serve customers around the world. Imagine if they float. A company I co-founded, our architects at Blue Frontiers planned an aquarium restaurant designed for 100 diners a night. Imagine the ecotourists who will dine on crops and fish and witness the first demonstration that seasteads can restore the environment. Why are seasteaders doing this? And what does this have to do with launching to the stars? Many have observed that we know more about the surface of Mars than we know about the seafloor of our own planet. Rutger Koch is looking at seamounts, which are undersea mountains. Many are less than 100 meters below the surface. You can tether your seastead to this. Tens of thousands of seamounts have been detected in international waters by researchers using satellite data. The diameters of some of these flat summits can exceed 10 kilometers. Seamounts, as you know, attract a vast abundance of marine life because the oceans come in and strike the seamount, and it causes a great upwelling of nutrient-rich waters to the surface. So seamounts are where most of the deep sea life on the oceans flourishes, including biologists. And seamounts are productive fishing grounds for more than 80 commercial species worldwide. That's your business model. Where are seasteaders going with all this? Seasteading is much bigger and more ambitious than anybody imagines, and it's not confined to this planet. Why is the lead engineer of seasteading an aerospace engineer with a specialty in aeronautical? Rutger Koch worked for the German Navy. He worked for a who's who of some of the biggest firms in engineering as a contractor. He created several advanced systems for air and sea. The ocean is a springboard for space. Rutger is developing the next iteration of the launch loop, a means to economically launch tons of material into the upper atmosphere. If you want to get a massive payloads of material into space, you probably need to stop with the rockets. The launch loop is often called the Lofstrom loop because the two leading legends of launch loops and space elevators are Keith Lofstrom and John Knappman. Rutger has corresponded with Keith Lofstrom extensively about his project, and John Natman has flown in to meet with Rudiger to work on his ideas. Lofstrom Loop is 2,000 kilometers long and is maintained at an altitude of up to 80 kilometers in his design. And somehow this structure curves up as the rotor is turned on to form this parabolic trajectory. And when I asked Rudy to explain to me how a launch loop works, he told me to watch the video by Isaac Arthur. Isaac Arthur may recognize this page from Keith Lofstrom's famous paper, which he updated in 2009, where he goes into tremendous detail about how it would work. Most of the places he proposes to build these are within sailing distance of Panama in international waters. The oceans are the place to train for space. NASA already requires that their astronauts be aquanauts. This year, a crew of astronauts spent 9 days in an undersea habitat known as NEEMO, or NASA Extreme Environmental Operation, off the coast of Key Largo, Florida. This was an all-female crew. This woman is a neurobiologist taking a cognitive test under stressful conditions. What are the physiological effects of breathing oxygen in high-pressure environments? What are the group dynamics and how does behavior change under physical and mental stress? How do they deal with time delays associated with sending and receiving commands between Earth and the asteroid? It's a lot safer and cheaper to test this at sea than in space. The NASA Ames engineers watched my video series, The 8 Great Moral Imperatives of Seasteading, and they invited me to give a special presentation there twice. They were very interested that seasteaders plan algae-based economies because they were developing algae in space to turn the CO2 back into oxygen. These are some of the folks from their exobiology branch working with algae to turn astronaut poop into food and fuel. The NASA engineers suggested that on a floating, self-sustaining community, you could practice zero-gravity environments inexpensively underwater. If things go wrong, you can come back to the surface, adjust your methods, go back down. This is Sea Orbiter, a project being developed right now by Jacques Rougerie, a legendary French aquatect. He spoke at our last seasteading conference, and he provided an illustration for the seasteading book. Here it is. Jacques Rougerie designed this floating city to follow the form and function of a manta ray. Nature has already discovered elegant designs, and humanity needs to imitate them. Biomimicry. If you want to get megatons of material into space, you need the launch loop. For the launch loop, you need a society at sea. And for a society at sea, we need the legal ecosystem to legally establish civilization. We need your help acquiring a tailor-made seastead flag. Not for a ship, barge, or oil platform, but a new kind of vessel requiring a new legal definition in established international law. We did the legal work. Seasteads are exempt from most international maritime conventions if they, 1, do not voyage, if the hull is less than 12 meters long at the waterline, if it's less than 400 gross tonnage, if it's certified to hold less than 15 persons, and if it remains outside foreign ports. The only regulations that apply involve pollution, and seasteaders are not going to pollute their own backyard. A specially designed seastead flag is a public good to be used by any seastead company on the ocean. That means the nonprofit Seasteading Institute must provide it unless somebody can convince me otherwise. 2/3 of the Earth's surface will be open to seastead if we establish a special seastead flag. How much is that worth? We have many flagging registries to choose from. Let's pay for our seastead flag and legally open the Blue Frontier. Oceans first, the stars next. I would love to listen to your ideas, and thank you for listening.